Hello, everybody. This is Nikki from Motherhood Unfiltered. It's going to be okay. And today I have Leann Stickels on the line with me, and we are going to talk about her chronic illness and how she deals with that on a daily basis for a long time. Plus, she has 4 teenagers. So I bet her household's a little crazy. And I'm sure she can offer us some great insight. But before I bring her on, I would like to remind everybody to go onto Apple iTunes or Spotify and rate and review the podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then please like, comment, and subscribe. If you've already done all of those things because you're awesome, then share it with someone that you care about. So without further ado, here is Leanne. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. I know it's been a while since we last talked, and um, that was right before my break that I took, and I could tell I was getting a little frazzled. So I needed I needed to
It's
regroup because I had been so busy with um, being on Podmatch. It just kept me so hopping, and I just love the community there. So, but tell us a little about yourself and um and how you're dealing with your MS and raising your kids.
right. So that's a novel. We could talk about this for a long time.
I know.
So I will start sharing my journey, and you just stop me anytime, okay? And
Oh,
say
okay.
we need to dive into that further. Um,
Yeah.
so here I am, 29, and I have 4 kids, 6 and under. And you can picture this house, right? It's so busy. I always said that I take calls in the order they're received. Like I can only solve one thing at a time, whether it's
Yeah.
snack, a drink, potty, naps, right? And so you can understand that number one, I dismissed fatigue as an early symptom because,
Mhm.
like, what young
Moms are always tired.
always tired, right? So it's like
Yes.
totally expected and it's fine. And I just want to tell your listeners that if you're tired, that's okay. It probably is fine, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
to just kind of go to this space with me because I'm an eternal optimist. And so I look for reasons why this is happening and not look for, and like I try and explain things away, right? And I
Uh-huh.
think that some of us have a natural tendency to do one or the other, right? Some people go automatically to worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And that is not great, but it's also not great to be dismissive of
Right.
early
Oh
signs of
yeah.
something going wrong, right? And so I
Yeah.
was in that other camp of just dismissing signs. In fact, in the summer before I was diagnosed, I fell. I got out of bed. I had no legs, hit the ground. Like, sounds like a giant red flag. Rushed to the
Yeah.
hospital. I did not. I was
Right.
explained it. I was like, oh, there's a toddler in my bed. I was probably sleeping like crooked and like my legs were probably totally asleep. I just explained it away, right?
I fell on a toy.
Right. I mean, for whatever, because in my mind, there was I just didn't see that as my
Yeah.
future. I
Right.
wasn't expecting a chronic illness. And
Yeah.
so, of course, I wasn't looking for it. Um, in the fall of 2009, the numbness in my left hand was driving me crazy. It wasn't going away. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
just there for a few days. It was there for weeks and weeks and weeks. And
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time, we had an HMO. And when you have an HMO, you have to go to your family doctor to get a referral.
Yeah.
And I thought it was annoying, right? Because I'm like, ugh, one more appointment. I just know I need to go see a chiropractor and get like straightened out. I probably have a pinched nerve, like because of course I know everything and I have webbing, you
Well,
know,
you are a mom.
right? It's like I'm fine. Um, and my family doctor was like, time out, you know, no, you are 29 years old and we need to check out a few things.
Yeah.
And every time I see him, I give him a big hug because it's because of him that I got diagnosed early. And really,
Mhm.
it was within 6 weeks of that visit that after a physical exam by a neurologist, an MRI, it was very
Mhm.
conclusive. And she
Mhm.
said, "On October 23rd, Leanne, you have MS." And my world fell apart. It sounds dramatic, but when I was in that office, all I could
Yeah.
picture was a wheelchair. Like, I
Yeah.
in the moment, right? Like, I walked
Yeah.
into the office all optimistic, like, "Oh, I'm fine. Don't take off work now. I'm good," right?
Right.
Expecting them to find something structurally wrong with me on the
Yeah.
MRI. And so to say you have multiple sclerosis and in your mind,
Mhm.
when you don't know a ton about something,
Yep.
oh my goodness, like, I pictured a wheelchair. I thought they were gonna wheel me out of the office, that
Yeah,
day.
I had a great aunt who had MS, and we went and visited her in a nursing home, and she was this crumpled up little ball of a person, and
Right,
she wasn't even able to sit up and talk to us. I mean,
right,
she was happy we were there, but that's my vision. If when someone said they have MS, I'm like, that's I'm expecting that to happen. So, yeah, I could feel
right.
what you were thinking that day.
So I really went into a season of mourning. I was
Yeah,
mourning the future that I had pictured. I was mourning the fact that this was my story. I was
yeah,
mourning that, like, my plan and what I was gonna do for the next 50 years was gonna be different now. Like, there was just so many things, and I'm firstborn, type A, right? Like, and, it was that was a hard season for me, and I
yeah.
believe I'm genetically optimistic. My grandfather, who's gone, was just like me. Like, it
Mhm,
comes easy to us to be positive, and
mhm.
I was in a hard season. And I would take care of everybody all day, and then I would lay in bed and tears would just come down my face at night. And my poor husband
Yeah,
was like, "Is there anything I can do?" And I'm like, "I'm just sad. Like, I just don't wanna learn about MS. I don't wanna
yeah,
figure out the drug. I don't wanna do any
yeah,
of it," you know?
yeah. How
So
dare they say I have this. Now I have to do something different.
yeah,
Whole new
and
plan.
right. And so for all the newly diagnosed people out there, people that I work with, people that I meet, I encourage them to pause and allow themselves to be sad. Like,
Yeah,
this is a big deal and this is hard, and it's
yep,
okay to respect the hard. And
yeah,
it's almost like, I don't know, it feels kind of honoring to me to be
yeah,
like, "Oh my goodness, this stinks and I am not okay the next
yeah,
day." Right?
right.
And they will get to the okay part. And that's a different length of time for everybody.
Yeah,
And but that beginning was hard, and, like,
yeah,
I instantly picture, "Oh my goodness, I have 4 little kids. Are we gonna need to build a ranch?" Like, I use all 3 floors of our home, like, you instantly go to and
yeah,
really, I had good advice. My mom was on the school board with a lady living well with MS,
uh-huh,
and, I spoke with her, and she was so amazing. She said, "Leanne, picture the worst, like, worst case scenario, like vision loss, wheelchair, whatever that is, and come up with,
yeah,
like, what exactly are you going to do? Let's say it happens, right? Like, are you going to
uh-huh,
build a ranch, or can you move
yeah,
somewhere, or what are you going to do?" And make a plan, and then, like, put it to rest, set it on a shelf. And so that is the direction I lead people, is to, like,
mhm,
mentally get there and then be
mhm.
done with it
Oh,
because
okay.
it's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, let's give yourself time to reminisce about it, and, okay, that probably worst case scenario, that's not happening today, you know? So,
Exactly.
yeah, I can respect that advice.
So here, that's the beginning. And then I decided on a drug. So
Mm,
here's what I want to say, and this will probably be the best part, is that
mhm,
people that are newly diagnosed, there's a ton of hope. So, of all the brain diseases out there, MS has made the most headway, and some of that has been accidental. Like, they've been doing testing on Alzheimer's patients, and they trip over something that works for an MS patient, right? Like, that's kind of how research works.
right.
And so, our community has been really fortunate in the last couple decades that there
Uh-huh,
are a lot of options, and the
awesome.
science is really there for slowing down the progression of the disease, so that most people my
Uh-huh,
age that are diagnosed are not gonna be like your great aunt in that assisted
yeah,
living.
yeah,
Um, there are as many stories as there are patients, so I always tread lightly, right, when I
mhm,
say that,
yeah,
because so I have relapsing remitting MS, and it can turn into secondary progressive, or you
Uh-huh.
could be diagnosed with progressive MS. So those are variations, and it's
Okay.
mostly based on how aggressive the disease is.
Right.
And relapsing remitting is the most common and the least aggressive.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I was gonna ask about that if you have, like, periods of good times, and then I could just, almost imagine maybe, like, poor health, not sticking to a routine and stress triggering those symptoms and causing them to flare up, I
Yes.
mean, because that happens with any kind of illness that people have, you know?
Totally. So stress and fatigue, right? They're the two things that we have like a tiny bit of control over, a
Yeah,
tiny bit, and they have a huge impact on us.
yeah,
So that has to be a focus, and we have to figure out how to manage fatigue and respect rest, and we have to learn how to deal with stress, reduce it,
mhm,
all the things. Like the impact of stress on our bodies is insane. And
yeah.
the more I've read and researched, it's like if you have a road rage incident, okay, and your blood pressure goes up,
That
right?
used to be me all the time.
Mhm. Right, so you're like, "Ugh," whatever, and then you come home and you
Yeah,
tell your family, like, "Oh my goodness, you can't believe this guy cut me off, blah, blah, blah."
yep,
Your body recognizes it as the same thing, okay, and so now you've reintroduced that stress,
yeah,
and so it's even learning little tools like that to sure, maybe in the moment you were upset, but
yeah,
we're not gonna revisit it, like, this is not worth retelling because it's
right,
actually bad for us, which is kind of mind-boggling, right? But it's
yeah.
also cool that we can do simple things like that to reduce stress on our system.
How many times have you talked to somebody and they will repeat a story like that, and you hear them tell, like, 4 or 5 different people, like, in an
Like a
office
million.
setting, Like, I
Mhm.
gotta tell everybody the bad news, right?
Oh, for
But
sure,
instead, I'm just
right?
self-inflicting more pain on my body.
Yeah, I mean, it really is telling, and I think it's
Yeah,
cool that, my focus really has been on mental strength and
yeah,
how when we learn tools to be stronger up here,
yeah,
it's really a way to take care of ourselves, and
yeah,
I love getting my nails done and going to lunch, and I'm all for that kind of self-care, but the
uh-huh,
reality is that this is with us every day, every minute, and we
yeah,
have got to develop mental strength
yeah,
because hard things will come. This is not an
yeah,
if, right?
yeah,
Every
yeah,
single person, and that's the reality that I've learned living
uh-huh,
with a chronic illness is that people may not have a chronic illness, but they have another hard, right?
mhm,
Something else
mhm,
in their life that has been hard, that they didn't choose, that
yep,
they wish was different, you know? So, it is very relatable.
mhm,
Oh, I wanna come back to good times of
right.
good um, can we talk about that for just a second about the, like, seasons of good health
Yeah,
with
the
MS?
floor is
Yeah.
yours. I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah, I love it. So, yes, there will be seasons where your symptoms are really quiet, and that is the relapsing, remitting part of MS, right? So it's like your symptoms will be
Mhm,
loud and then they will subside. And you'll think, oh, wow,
mhm,
this is going really good. And then, right, we come into a season of stress, fatigue, maybe a temperature change, depending on what you're sensitive to, any
mhm,
number of things. And now all of a sudden, my symptoms are loud again. And my hand is more numb and my legs are heavy. And I'm so worn out, and a nap doesn't fix it, right? That's what it
mhm,
looks like. And in
yeah.
the first year, I thought that every single symptom was a relapse. Okay. Like, oh my goodness, I'm having, like, this is bad. And
I
the
have a
disease,
runny nose. I'm
right. I mean,
relapsing.
it's really hard to know, like, to separate
Yeah.
because you have this like long list of things that, like,
I would be doing the same thing. I'm like, "I stubbed my toe. I'm relapsing."
right? Well, in 2017, so that was almost 8 years after my diagnosis, I did
Mhm.
actually have a relapse. I developed double vision, And
Oh,
within 2 days of that relapse, I was hospitalized and put on high dose steroids. And that was a sign of my drug failing. And
oh, okay.
we had to make a choice to go a different route with treatment.
Mhm,
So that was hard. It wasn't as hard as being diagnosed. Um,
mhm.
of course, I had put my rose colored glasses back on after my diagnosis, and I kind of thought like I would be the one lucky patient that the disease did not progress in, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it was disappointing to be wrong. And
right.
it was hard to go back to the drawing board and make another hard choice because
Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but anytime there's a drug listed, there's like 4,000 pages of fine print.
yeah,
You notice that? Yeah, like
yeah.
you could die this way, 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 and you're like, oh my goodness, like this is
I
supposed to
know,
help me.
there was a drug I was on a long time ago, and it made my legs shake. So, okay, well, who cares? Well, when I was driving, it started doing that, and I couldn't control it, and I almost wrecked. So, I, like, went to the doctor, and he's like, "Well, first of all, is the side effect worse than what you're the sickness that you're, dealing with?" I was like, "Oh, no," but, you know, so, I mean, those are just things you have to live with and make a decision on.
Mhm.
Um, so but, I know people can get used to taking a medication and it's not as effective. Is that the same with MS medicine that okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and the science isn't perfect, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So while it is trying to protect what's left of your central nervous system, the immune
Uh-huh.
system can still sneak its way through and start
Yeah.
doing damage again, right? And
Right.
a lot of unknowns, even within the autoimmune
Mhm.
whole community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I went on a different treatment and I've been doing really well since that. I
Well,
did
good.
develop Graves' disease as a side
Yeah.
effect, which that was annoying. And
Oh
I
my
had my thyroid
god.
out.
I've Hashimoto's, so,
Okay. So this came
yeah.
out this summer. So that was exciting, you know.
I
Um,
know.
it's a small your thyroid is a small organ that can cause big problems.
It's itty bitty.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, "I gotta see what this thing looks like," and it's just like a little tiny thing, I'm like, "What the heck?"
Exactly.
It causes
Exactly.
all kinds of problems.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, the journey health-wise, it has been
Yeah.
bumpy, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about being a mom on top of that, I think that the important thing for me has been
Uh-huh.
always communicating with my family, and
Okay.
that's easy for me because I'm an extrovert, like, I like to go into the
Uh-huh.
gas station to pay just to talk to people, and, like, that's the level of conversation that I wanna have, and so I've always talked to my family, right? And
Yeah.
so they can give me space when I need space, and they can pick up the
Yeah.
ball when I drop it. And
Mhm.
so, no, I'm fortunate, but I think that conversation is the first place to start. The second thing is that moms, I had to have a nap. So, I mean, I just could
Yeah.
not function. And
Yeah.
so, my kids were 6 and under, so we still had quiet time,
Right.
and it just became what we did. And
Right.
so my kids really grew up with that kind of
Yeah.
accommodation for me.
I can
And
hear the moms out there be like, "Oh, we can still do this."
right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think as a mom, there's a lot of us that want to accomplish something during nap time. And
Mhm.
it took me a second to realize that I was accomplishing something when I rested,
Yeah.
when my kids
Yeah.
rested, because what I
Yeah.
wanted more was to enjoy the evening as a
Yeah.
family.
Right.
And that's what I had to give up. I had to give up getting something done during nap time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, I definitely could agree with that, and there were times when I mean, even when people don't have an illness to deal with, like, when my boys would get stressed out and if we took a road trip, I mean, by the time we would get home, they would be at each other's throat. So, we just started doing, like, 15, 20 minutes of quiet time in our rooms, including the adults. So, you
Mhm.
know, and that helped so much. You know, they
Yeah,
had their own time and they could just de-stress, and parents and moms need to do that more often. They really do,
for
you
sure.
know?
For sure.
Yeah,
And, I think that looping everyone in and helping them understand, like, this is really how I do feel, and this
yeah,
was a crummy day for me, and I had to have an
mhm,
MRI, and I didn't like it, and that's not how I
mhm,
wanted to spend my day, and
yeah.
so I just feel like my kids have grown up, and they are so compassionate
Oh,
because of seeing it firsthand, right? Like, they
yeah,
awareness there that
yeah,
is hard to teach people, right?
right,
You
right.
when you live it, you are very aware. Um,
I I I like that because there were things that had happened to me, and, like, I had to have a surgery, and I waited until they went to their dad's for the summer to have the surgery, and I never told them about it or anything, and so now that they're adults, I talked about it, and they're like, "Well, why didn't you tell us?" You know, they feel like they weren't important enough for me to explain it to them, but and that wasn't my intention at all. I just, didn't want them to worry, about it,
yeah,
and but I really didn't give them an opportunity to, talk about it and, um, ask questions if they had to ask questions or whatever it would be. But so, yeah, I've had to apologize for some of those things because I didn't want them to think I was discrediting them because they were like the most important things, people in my life,
well,
you
yeah,
know.
and
So,
you had good intentions, right? It
yeah.
wasn't like I mean, you were doing that to help them
But
out.
now I'm like, well, I could have used that to my advantage and then like, well, I had the surgery, so can you like clean the house for me while I lay here on the couch with my iced tea and watch my love stories?
That's when they call grandmas in. Like, so they don't ever actually do it. They just figure out a way to get, "Oh, grandma, we need to."
Well, those little stingers, they got around that one, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But I wanna share another thing that I have
Uh-huh,
loved with my kiddos, and that is that we started a nonprofit. So, and I wanna explain a little bit of because if anybody listening is interested in this and what we've
uh-huh.
done, reach out to me. Like, I
Okay.
am not scary. I am happy to mentor people in this space, like, just for free because
Yeah.
I love it so much. So, here's what happened. I believe that if we do good with the bad part of our story, it is healing.
Mhm.
It helps us a lot, right?
Yes.
Maybe even starting a podcast was maybe you went through something that was hard or that you
Yeah.
felt frustrated with, and then you think, you know what, I can do this good. And I
Yeah.
find that with a lot of podcast hosts, like they are really
Yeah.
special people that want people to feel less alone.
Right.
And they are sharing their story and other people's
Mhm.
stories. And so this our kids triathlon came out of that. So when so I would initially I was just fundraising for the MS Society. So the National MS Society is what it sounds like, right?
Uh-huh.
It's big picture help, research, education, awareness, all
Right.
super important. They're big
Yeah.
nationwide, right? Like all the
Yeah.
things.
Right.
And we did events with them and loved it.
Uh-huh.
And our fundraising would be like throw it up on Facebook a couple of times. People had big hearts. Oh my goodness, we care so much. Send you a little bit of money, right? And
Yeah.
it was really easy. It wasn't like where you had to bug people, knock on doors, nothing.
Yeah.
Until I'd had MS for a few years, and you've posted that a couple times, and people have given, and they're like,
Uh-huh.
"Didn't I already check that off?" Or like, I just think like they did. They helped, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I wasn't gonna bug them every single year, you know?
Yeah.
And so the triathlon was born out of wanting to continue to fundraise, but not
Mhm.
in a way that we were just bugging our same family and friends all the time.
Yeah.
And so my kids had done an event like this in Michigan. We loved it. And I reached out to that race director, and
Mhm.
she mentored me. And so we started this 8.5 years ago. We're going
Mhm.
into year 9, and it's a kids triathlon. It's for kids ages 6 to 15, and
Oh,
raised over $100,000 for patients.
wow.
And that is our number one mission, is to raise money. But our
Yeah.
secondary mission is to inspire kids to love fitness
Yeah.
because I'm an academic, not an athlete, but
Yeah.
right? But when you are diagnosed with an illness that could take away your mobility, all of a sudden movement mattered.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
fitness became part of my story.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Well,
Well,
I
because you have to think about that. You're like thinking of being in a wheelchair. And so, yeah, I mean, even though you've always exercised your brain, um, I just love that you guys that you did that. And it's for kids because I was thinking, okay, so I'm a mom, I can't move. So me and the kids are going to sit in the house, and this is a great opportunity to get them out of the house, even though,
exactly.
yeah, I love that.
And, really our thought and my passion is to inspire kids to love fitness because when you come to a race, it's exciting. Everybody's worked hard. There's all these volunteers. You get free race stuff like a shirt and a medal. It's all this whole energy, right?
You get to
And if you
scream.
can you get to scream and yell, and there's timing, it's professional, and it's like the whole real deal. We have a podium, professional pictures are done. It's just so much fun. And these
Yeah.
kids come year after year after year. They try and beat their time, beat their friends. Um, and it has just been so powerful for our family
Mhm. Yep.
because it was a space for my kids to volunteer. I mean, of course, they
Yes.
participated too, but they would
Yeah.
help for it and they would see this whole world of charitable giving and what does it mean
Oh.
to. And so, anyways, it is like a part time job for me for part of the year.
Yeah.
But I always say, as long as I raise more than I can write a check for, it's worth it.
Oh, for sure, yes. I
Mhm.
love that. I had that on my list to ask you. So, I mean, you must have been reading my mind, or you've done this before.
Well, I sometimes I get to the end of a conversation and I'm like, "Oh, the triathlon, we have to talk about that." And because we're in a motherhood space, I think
Yeah.
that it's a because there's other people out there that are like me, and they're staying home with their kiddos, or maybe they have a
Yeah.
little bit of flex time in their schedule. They
Mhm.
wanna do good, and I think there's a lot of room for events like this that
Mhm.
are, like, a little bit more unique than just a 5K.
Yeah.
Love love people that do 5Ks.
Yeah.
No shade, right? On the
Yeah.
organizers, on the runners, it's
Yeah.
awesome. But to find something for kids, right? And there's no experience necessary, they can show up with a bike and a helmet, and they can do our event.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
I know, and most kids have enough energy to make it, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
So,
It really is. I call it like my 5th kid, the
yeah.
triathlon, because I love it so much, and it's funny when we started it, I said, "We're gonna at least do this for the next 10 years," because the first one was brutal. Just the learning curve, like, all the pieces to the puzzle, it was just like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
just because you've gone to an event or even
Yeah.
participated in an event does not mean that you are ready to be the host. Like,
I know.
let me just like word of caution, please reach out to me. Send me an email. We will set up a time to go on Zoom and I will give you the
I
crash
know.
course. I even have a spreadsheet that I share with people of
Yeah.
all to get done.
Like a checklist. I That's so funny because I was president of our music boosters for a long time, and at first, it was it was atrocious. Then
Right?
they want me to get up there and talk to people, and I'm just like all over the place. But after, it just takes practice and doing it over and over. And like you said, I ended up having like a list, that I would check off to make sure that I hadn't forgotten something. Because when I don't know what I'm going to say, then I start sticking my foot in my mouth and talking about
Right?
things I had no business mentioning.
Wasn't it like Benjamin Franklin or something? Somebody said that if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter.
Yeah.
And so, like, the time that we invest makes what we produce better and
Yeah.
more to the point and all
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So, the triathlon has been really healthy space for our family,
Mhm.
and it has brought people into our lives that
Mhm.
it's just been really beautiful, and then to be able to donate the funds to help patients. So, the National
Yeah.
MS Society gets some of that money, and then in
Mhm.
Central Illinois, which is where I live, we
Mhm.
have a council that helps local patients, and so part of
Oh.
the funds go there. So, it is literally paying for co-pays, MRIs,
Oh,
reminders,
yeah.
like, it's really, really cool to know that you're having your
Yeah.
dollars are having an impact like that.
I love that. So, um, so thinking about that, I so recently I just had a gene site test done. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. It's like a DNA test, and they just check to see if the medication you take is actually working or is compatible with your makeup. And so is that something that they do for, someone with a chronic illness? Do they, like, do a DNA test to make sure that what you're taking is actually working as best as it can?
So, I haven't had one done, and I've never had one requested.
Uh-huh.
I would love to start asking people in my audience if they have
Yeah.
chosen to go that route to learn that.
Now I
Um,
know this was, like, for people who take, medication for, like, anxiety, depression, but I would have to think they would have something out there for other, illnesses too. So I
mhm.
was just curious to know if you'd had heard about anything like that being offered.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't
Yeah.
really heard about it in our space.
Okay.
And what is happening every year for me is, a yearly MRI,
Yeah.
and that shows whether or not there's new activity in my brain and cervical spine,
Mhm.
like the neck portion.
Uh-huh.
And, the other thing is that the treatment that I went on in 2018 was
Uh-huh.
more aggressive, and so I have had monthly labs done for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that's, like, not super fun, but it's, right? It is what caught the Graves' disease
Yeah.
early,
Yeah.
and I'm really thankful for that
Yeah.
because it took away, like, months of, like, not understanding, "Why do I feel this way?" Right? They
Again,
caught
yeah.
it and could start because I still didn't feel good for quite a few months because
Right.
even though you find it, you go to endocrinology and it takes a while to get you
Yeah.
figured out,
Yeah.
and at least I didn't have to wait, like, "I don't feel good. Oh, I'm not sure. I should check in," and then start
Yeah.
the whole journey, right? Like, you would have doubled the amount of time it took to
Right.
get to kind of feeling back to yourself.
Yeah. I what they discovered on mine because I kept telling my doctor, I'm like, "I am so tired all the time." And I just assumed it was, my thyroid. And he's like, "Well, your numbers are fine. Like, what are you talking about?"
Mhm,
I'm tired. So what
mhm,
happened was when we got the results back, one of my medications was not working the best that it could do. So they offered a different one. And so we ended up switching to that one. And they found out it said that I was folic acid deficient. And
okay.
so I started taking a supplement and I feel like a brand new person. I
Oh my
couldn't
goodness,
believe it.
Nikki. That's awesome.
I know I haven't been tired or fatigued. We did catch some kind of a flu over the winter, but other than that, I couldn't believe it. Like I have been up. I couldn't even. I mean, I work from home, but walking from my upstairs office to my living room, I was like, I gotta sit down. I'm so tired.
Mhm,
And I mean, I
right,
couldn't believe it.
yeah.
I have more energy, I love it. So now whenever I get to talk to anybody with who's sickness or whatever, I'm like, "Have you heard about this test?" And they
Yeah,
just swab your cheek, and then, like, a week later, they send you an update, and, I it's it's amazing.
yeah,
It
that's
is
a
really amazing.
fantastic review. I'm glad that you shared that because I am
Yeah.
always looking for because there really is a lot of new stuff coming all the
Yeah.
time, and it is really great, and, like,
Yeah.
the brain and I think the gut biome, like, are the 2 places that are, like, the
Yes.
uncharted they haven't figured it
Yes.
all out. Like,
Yes.
surgery, they have figured out.
Yeah.
Like, in the '70s, it was a 50% mortality rate, and today it's, like, 2%. So,
Yeah.
like, they really figured that space out structurally.
Right. Right.
But brain, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's,
Yep.
ALS, MS, some of those, there's still a lot to be learned
Mhm.
about how to prevent, how to fix,
Mhm.
how to repair, right?
Mhm.
Prevent all the things. Um,
Exactly.
and the gut biome. I don't even want to talk about that because I really do not understand it at all, but I do know that it matters and it's
Oh,
probably a
you
big
mean like healthy gut?
all the
Yeah.
bacteria. And I've been reading about it, and so I'm hoping to
Well,
learn more.
I took a class, at IU East, and they talked about the gut health and how you got these little fingers and it blocks out the bad stuff. Well, when you're eating bad foods, when you keep doing that, it breaks all that down. And then that's where all the bad digestive stuff comes from.
Mhm.
So you just have to stop eating the bad stuff,
Right?
and
Totally.
which is so hard because I feel like they put crack in it to make you addicted to it.
They do,
So,
yeah, and we
I
have access to it, right? And it's easy,
yeah,
and it's in our
yeah,
lifestyle, so
yeah.
it's, and we don't necessarily feel like it's that bad,
It
and
tastes delicious. I
we
mean,
don't eat the whole thing or whatever, we use for justification, you know?
I kn I know.
Mhm.
So and on another point of it, since we're talking about being a mother, so, of course, I would be stressing out about one of my kids getting MS or developing it later on. So, I'm sure you've had those conversations with the doctor. So, what do they do? I mean, do they have any kind of test that they can do to see if, one of the kids might be susceptible later on, or how does that work?
So the answer really is that they don't really have that test yet. I
Okay.
think we'll see it in our lifetime, probably,
Yeah.
where they can
Yeah.
start testing for, um, likelihoods or environmental factors that
Yeah.
we'll know more about. But I will say that it really is not a genetic disease. You
Okay.
will find people that are related, right?
Uh-huh.
That both have MS, and that's probably more because of environments that they both live in,
Oh, yeah, okay.
more than the fact that they have similar genes. So
Okay, well, that's good to know then.
there was
Yeah.
probably a trigger, like maybe I got crop dusted or something, and that made my
You
immune
got
system
crop dusted.
right. Like who knows? I mean, you could guess for 100 years,
There's Leanne, we got a crop duster.
but like who knows? Like whatever
Yeah.
chemical or whatever was in your own environment. I
Right,
didn't
right.
have sunlight. I don't know. Like literally, there's a million theories
Yeah,
on why your immune system decided to change its mind and work against you,
right,
right? Which
right.
is
I
autoimmune.
could definitely see my kids be, like, having one of the symptoms and be like, "Oh, I got MS like my mom," and then trying because they try to be comedians, and I'm like, "You ain't got that. Quit."
Right.
I mean, I don't know if your kids are jokesters like that, but mine are. They
Yeah, they
and
are,
they
but I
blame
have
all
to
their bad
say
stuff on me. Anything bad that happens is mom's fault because I was the main one that raised them. So,
somebody has to be to blame, right? We don't ever wanna,
I
like, self-own any of our
I
issues.
know. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, I guess I blame my mom too for a lot of stuff, so but, anyway, I need to quit using her as an example because she listens to my podcast and she's
Aw,
probably she's probably gonna say, "Quit blaming me for all your problems."
no kidding, no kidding. Well,
Well, Leanne, so do you have any last thoughts to share with us before we go?
yeah, I really wanna share what really one of my passion projects is, and that is
Mhm.
helping people be mentally strong, right? Because they
Yeah.
are gonna face hard things. And so it was after that period of mourning where I
Mhm.
was sad, and then I decided that it wasn't that fun to host a pity party, and it wasn't fun to attend, and I didn't love how I felt, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that I needed to change my perspective. And
Right.
that was so powerful when I realized that I could and I should,
Yeah.
and like it brought me so much peace. And so,
Yeah.
the people that I work with now are at that place. Like they're kind of tired of, like, I want to just do this visually for people. When we have MS or any issue, right? We hold on to it and we're like figuring it out and we're learning and we're Googling.
Yeah,
And the whole time that you're doing that, you're holding on to it. And then you're
right.
talking to your mom about it, and then you're talking to your friend, and then you're going to a support group, and then you're looking on Facebook groups and blah, blah, blah. The whole time you're holding it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And it makes you unable to pick up something else. Something
yeah,
like writing a book, playing the
yeah,
piano, talking to your
yeah.
friend about shopping or clothes,
Right,
whatever, right?
right.
And so
Yeah.
just helping people to kind of like take that chronic illness, that hard,
Mhm.
and like set it on a shelf. It's still there. Like
Yep.
you're not ignoring it. You're just
Yeah.
at peace with it. And you realize that I can pull it down. I can handle it. I can go to a conference. I can do new research, read a book on vacation if I want to,
Uh-huh.
but you don't
Yeah.
have to, right?
Right,
And
right.
so that has helped my clients kind of visually make peace with this crummy part and
Oh, yeah.
focusing and fussing with it.
Yes.
And now over here, now let's explore what we're excited about, what we can
Mhm.
control, what we can make progress on. Because that's the hard part about the no known cause, no known cure. Like, I don't care how many times you fuss with it, right? You still have
Yeah,
it's yours, right? And
yeah,
that's so difficult. We want Amazon Prime results. We want to get a cast and have it fixed.
right.
Want 8 to 12 weeks will be
Yep.
better. And it that can be very defeating.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I just encourage people to make peace, get excited about a space that you have some say in.
Right.
And like by doing that, I feel like you're being a better boss of yourself,
Yeah.
your mental health, and then
Yeah.
be excited about this, right?
Right.
Whatever this is, planning a
Yeah.
vacation,
Well, it just
repaint the
makes you
bedroom.
a bigger person than your illness. I
Exactly.
mean, before when you dwell on that, and I know people will tend to do that, that illness is bigger than them, like, they look small in my mind when I think about them, but when they continue to just, like you said, leave it on the shelf, but continue to do what they enjoy, what they love, then they become bigger than the illness, and those are
Sure.
the stories that people wanna hear, you
Yes.
know?
And
I
I
mean
always use that hashtag MS is not the boss of me because I'm determined, right? Like,
Yeah,
yes, it is part of my life and my story, and more than I would like it to be. I
yeah,
wouldn't have chosen it. I don't think it made me a better person. I think that, Nikki, you are amazing no matter what you've had to face. I think
yeah,
I'm amazing with or
yeah,
without it, right? Like,
yeah,
people show up. So
right,
I've learned a lot, and but I don't let it be the boss of me. It's
right,
not my full story. And I'm an open book. I'm
uh-huh,
happy to visit with people. And but yet if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool too. Right?
yeah.
Like I don't
There's lots of other stuff we could talk about.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So that I think is a healthy space or a healthy way to look
mhm,
at your heart or whatever you're facing.
mhm,
It's it's brought me a lot of peace, and
yeah,
I feel like I've seen light bulbs go off with people that
yep,
I've worked with.
yeah,
It's not like in one day you stop thinking about
no.
it all the live long minutes, like it takes a second to change that default setting.
Well, I
But
mean, and you have to, especially when you are in a bad habit, that to me, that's a bad habit. You have to, consciously stop yourself, you
oh,
know,
totally,
and then practice that each time until finally it's just, non-existent. So, yeah,
totally.
that's with everything. I mean, when I was younger, I would tell lies all the time, and lies
Mhm,
over stupid stuff
mhm,
because I was just so embarrassed that I would be thought of less than, what. But getting out of being a liar, that took
mhm,
forever,
mhm,
and I had to consciously think about that, and
mhm,
start just saying, "Yeah, I don't know how to do that." And what was the big deal about that,
right? Mhm.
So
but we go into autopilot, right? And so
Yes.
then that autopilot often takes us to a place of dissatisfaction
Mhm.
or unhappiness.
Yeah.
And so what I teach are tools to be more positive. You may
Mhm.
not end up like me. I feel like it's a gift, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like being a gifted musician.
Mhm.
I There's people that are, it's just like, "Oh my goodness, it's so annoying." Like, they can just sit down at the piano and they can just play. Like, "Well, how did that miss me?" You know? And I took
Yeah.
13 years of piano, no one will ever pay me to play.
Yeah.
And that is okay, the lessons were still worth it. And so I
Right.
say that about positivity, like, yes, it does come easier to me, but that's
Yeah.
why I'm sharing it. And
Yeah.
when you believe it's a skill, then it's something I can teach and you can learn and you can get better at, the
Right.
it's worth it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you're gonna just, like, wake up and all of a sudden you're Pollyanna, um, right? Like, that may never happen, and that's okay. I'm never gonna be Beethoven,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I still love the piano,
Uh-huh.
and it's a healthy space for me,
Yeah.
and it was a good use of my time, and is
Yeah.
still. And I think it's a good thought process for people to go through, because I think a lot of people say, "Well, I'm just negative," or "I'm a pessimist," or they label themselves a certain way, and
Yes.
I understand that that's their tendency, which
Yeah.
is okay. It's probably true,
Right.
but there's also hope, and they can
Mhm.
improve that space if they lean in and make the decision,
Yes.
invest some time and thought and practice.
That's a good lesson for anybody. Um, because I got named a Nazi, the office Nazi, and I didn't I did not like that.
Mhm.
And because I would come home and tell my husband about stuff and how I would react to it, and he's like, "You're why don't you leave them alone? You're just acting like an office Nazi." I was
That
like,
is hilarious.
well, it's funny now, but at the time, I was taken aback. I was like, "Well, I just want them to be as good of a worker as I am."
Amen.
I mean,
Right?
how arrogant is that too, right? I have a lot of issues I have to work through.
We all do.
So then I worked really hard on not doing anything that would make me be called a office Nazi. But
Awareness,
my
right,
friends love
is
it,
the first
because they like how I am. I just straight
Yeah.
shoot it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And we are not for everyone, right? And
No.
I understand that.
Oh,
And
I do too.
I don't
There's
work
one
with
I
everyone.
work with, and I am like, "I know I rub you the wrong way, and I'm so apologetic." So,
Yeah.
I do my
Mhm.
best not to rub them the wrong way,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because 'cause they're
We're
so
all
good people.
Oh, yeah, and we're all a work in progress, and
Yeah,
it's a healthy way to look at life and people and
yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
Leanne, I've so much enjoyed talking with you. Now I remember why we had such a great conversation. So, when we talked the first time. So,
Yeah, this
how
was
can someone reach out to you if they want to get a hold of you about your fundraising or your coaching?
Yep. So I'm really easy to find on Instagram. My handle is I am Leanne Stickel, and I'm there often. And I do voice notes. And people, don't be a stranger. I also have a Facebook community called Not Defined by Chronic Illness. It is a
Okay.
space that is not very whiny.
Yeah.
So I created that because I didn't like a lot of groups on Facebook. I thought they were a lot of whiners.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just a community and I love it.
Mhm.
And sometimes I go live in there and we talk about motivation and just
Yeah.
our journey. My
Cool.
website is leannstickle.com. So there's resources there. And I have a handful of podcast episodes. I started one the year my daughter graduated, which wasn't super smart, and it got paused. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but when things get paused, it's hard to get them restarted. And really, that's the goal for this year is to restart my
Yeah.
podcast. So
Well, that's
anyway,
why you're being a guest, so you get back in the hang of it.
it is healthy, and I appreciate what every host is doing because
Yeah.
they did it for just a tiny little bit and understand that it it's a lot.
It is a lot of work, but I get so much enjoyment out of it, and I just that's why I'm, like, begging for reviews because I wanna hear what people are thinking about it, and even if they said, "Well, that just totally sucked today," I would feel like, "Well, yeah, maybe it did," so I mean,
Yeah.
I need some constructive criticism,
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I know it'll come, if they're an introvert like me, they're probably afraid.
Well, it's why they're listening to podcasts, right? They're consuming,
Yeah,
and they know that it's a safe space, and,
yeah,
I
mhm,
think that that's the beautiful thing about podcasts is that
yeah.
it opens up another world to people.
It does, it really does. It
Mhm.
did for me, and that's why I think I know that's why I gravitated toward it, and because it was a safe space for me to talk and feel safe enough to voice my opinions because I'm over here by myself spewing it out, and no one can, like, come at me, you know? And I do live stuff, but, it's just been a safe place for me to spread my wings, and learn and talk about things that I've been learning about. So, but well, I'm
I
so glad we got to talk, and, hopefully we can, get together again in the future and learn more about what you've been doing and and
Yeah,
motivating people.
yeah, yeah, let's do this again. When
Yes.
you have an empty spot or somebody falls through, you just reach out
Oh,
anytime.
I sure will. Thanks, Leanne.
Perfect. Thanks, Nikki.